So in terms of the reception of her work, I mean, she has been translated, in many languages for quite a few decades now. But it's true that outside academia and outside kind of small number of readers, she wasn't that well known. Things started to change actually quite considerably with the years, which took a while to be translated. It came out in 2008. It was only translated in 2017. But that really gave her some kind of international prominence and recognition. I think now, with some of her books being adapted into films as well, and of course this highly prestigious prize, I think we are going to see even more international interest in her work, obviously, and partly because her work has such a strong resonance outside the French-speaking world. I think almost anyone can identify with some of the topics in her work.
There's a universality there of sorts. Now, as we said, she writes deeply personal accounts, also including socio-economic details about her family's working class background. Can you tell us a bit more about that in the context of the French literary establishment?
So Annie Ernaux is from fairly modest working class background. She probably wasn't meant to become a writer, an established writer. Her parents strongly encouraged her to keep on studying instead of giving up school to start work. And she has been writing about this social milieu that she came from. I think she could have chosen to turn away from it and to only talk about her current life experience. But for her, writing comes with a sense of responsibility. And actually being part of this establishment, having this privilege of being part of this establishment, also means using this privilege to challenge the establishment, to try and shift boundaries by including some uncomfortable topics, including that of social domination structures. We know that Ernaux was heavily influenced by the sociologist Bourdieu. And that's something that the establishment is maybe not always willing to hear.
As you say, uncomfortable subjects. One of them was, for example, abortion. She's written very candidly about sex, relationships. She's often called a writer of women's experience. Can you tell us a bit more about the feminist nature of what she's been doing?
That's right. I think the feminist nature was there from the very beginning, because her first book was a fictionalized account of her abortion. It was published in 1974. At the time, abortion had not been legalized in France yet. It was in the process of being legalized. We didn't know at the time that it was autobiographical, and with years and with experience and with the status that she acquired as a writer, she has been using this status to also make strong statements, not just in her work. As you said, she's been talking about female sexuality, about abortion, about her mother's Alzheimer's disease and the question of aging. But it's also outside her work in articles that she's been writing for large newspapers, for instance, that she has taken an active stance for women's rights.
Now, in recent years, the Nobel Prize has come under scrutiny, the Nobel Prize for Literature specifically, because of accusations of sexual harassment. Do you believe that these prizes still have the respect, the prestige that they had in previous years?
It's hard to say. I mean, clearly the Nobel Academy has done some kind of soul searching, and we know that back in 2018 it was the prize was not awarded because of that scandal. So clearly I think they are trying to go in a different direction now. So you could argue that it's not just an aesthetic choice, but it's also a political one.
Well, just briefly on political choices, many people believe that this year Salman Rushdie would be awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature because he was the victim of a stabbing that many believe to be linked to the fatwa placed upon him in the 1980s by the Iranian regime. Do you think the Nobel is deliberately staying out of a political debate here on free speech?
It's difficult for me to say. I think the question is whether the Nobel Academy should be reacting swiftly to something, to an important event that has just happened, like what happened to Salman Rushdie, or whether it should also be thinking about kind of the long-term aesthetic implications of a body of work, which is what Annie Ernaux's body of work clearly is doing. So I'm not sure it's the place of the academy to take those stances.
Indeed.